so that they were astonished and said, "Where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things?" And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown and in his own household." And he did not do many mighty works there because of their unbelief. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
My dear sisters and brothers in Jesus Christ, today as we celebrate the feast of Saint Joseph the Worker, I'd like to ask you a question. If you were given 24 hours in a day with no obligations to do anything from anyone outside of you, how would you spend your day? How would you like to spend your day if there was no boss behind you asking something of you, or if there were no family obligations, nothing else? How would you spend your day? Now, let me ask you another question. What if you had an entire week to yourself where you had no obligations, no superior, no parents, no one else breathing down your neck asking of an account of the week that you spent? How would you spend your week? Let's go a little further. If you had an entire month and you had no obligations, what would you do? What if you had a year, 2 years, 3 years? How would you spend your time? Sometimes we think that the ideal state of affairs for us is complete leisure, absolutely no obligations, no need to do any work at all. But the beauty of today's feast is that it emphasizes, as we heard in the first reading, that from the very beginning, God intended work for human beings and human beings for work. What contributes to our human dignity is the way in which we image God, not just in the love that we have for people, in our intelligence, but also how our physical and intellectual work contributes to the creativity that we see in the world. In fact, we express our image and likeness of God just as much at work as we do at leisure. In fact, it is part of our human meaning to have meaningful work that contributes to the world and society around us. And this is the truth that the book of Genesis proclaims to us. Sometimes we read between the lines after the fall that when God condemns Adam and Eve, and he tells Adam that by the work of his hands he will have to toil and sweat and with great effort bring out the fruit of his labor from the land. And then we hear God telling Eve that she will have pains in bringing forth life into the world as a mother. And we think that work for men and women and child labor for women is a punishment of God. But if we actually see the context of the passage, the command to till and care for the earth comes before the fall. What changes after the fall is we begin to resist work. It becomes a drudgery. We begin to resist the very plan of God, and that's what makes it painful. That's what makes us resent and make us want to always strive for leisure without any obligations, without any responsibility. But my dear brothers and sisters, if God has blessed us with the ability to do some work, either intellectual or physical, it is a great blessing. And if it is a blessing, it is meant not just for you and for me individually, but it is meant to bear fruit for others to the glory of God. We see that very clearly in the life of Saint Joseph, who, although was not the real father of Jesus in terms of biology, he was the real father of Jesus practically in every sense of the word. Psychologically, he was a role model for Jesus as a boy. And practically, Saint Joseph, through his hard work, provided for the needs of the Holy Family. And most of what he did was never celebrated in any history book, and even the scriptures hardly mention his work, but we do know his profession. Because in today's gospel passage, some of those who were following Jesus around thought that Jesus was too ordinary to be the Messiah. In their minds, the Messiah would come like a king, like David of old. But here was Jesus, apparently the son of an ordinary working man, a carpenter, and an ordinary woman, Mary of Nazareth. And they all knew Jesus' cousins, James and Joseph and Simon and Judas and his cousin sisters. And so, because the people in his own hometown of Nazareth felt that Jesus was too familiar, too ordinary, a working class man, he could never be the Messiah. But today's feast proclaims to us in the church that work is dignified. The feast of today tells us that we are called to respect the rights of people who work. If you are an employer, you are called to care for the overall well being of your workers. It's not a matter of only a transactional relationship, but even the employer employee relationship as Christians should be imbued with Christian charity, should be imbued with respect for the dignity of the human person and care for the overall well being of the person. If we have work, it is something to be thankful for. It is something to lift our hearts in praise to God for. In every Eucharist, the Lord comes to strengthen us with His grace so that we may carry out our daily tasks with joy, with commitment, and with a desire to improve the lives of people around us. Let us ask for this grace in this Eucharist.